Kimi K2.5, an amazing model. It builds on Kimi K2 with twice as many training tokens. They added another 15 trillion mixed visual and text tokens. It is now a multimodal model that is great at full stack front-end development, good at understanding video and images and building things. The benchmark scores are off the charts. It is beating Opus on Humanity's last exam. It is beating GPT 5.2 extra high on SweBench multilingual, nipping the heels of Opus and beating Sonnet, and the price point out of this world. It's available on OpenRouter, 60 cents per million input tokens. However, some of you may not want to use Moonshot AI's official API because of policies or restrictions for sending context and prompts to China. If that is your situation, you can specify the Fireworks provider, which gives you better throughput than anybody else on the open market right now for Kimi K2.5. Full context window, no quantizations, US-based inference provider. 60 cents per million input tokens, 10 cents if you're looking at a cache read, $3 per million output tokens. If we compare this to the API pricing of Claude, Sonnet, and Opus, it is about 1/5 to 1/10 the price. 1/10 the price for an equal or better model. However, it may be tricky to route your requests to Fireworks depending on your agent harness. So I'm going to go over how to do that with various agent harnesses. I'm going to cover open code and open hands, as well as something I've developed to allow you to use it with Claude Code and Factory Droid. Some of them provide this configuration out of the box, like OpenCode. You can set up in your opencode.json your OpenRouter providers with your configuration. This allows you to simply specify that you want to use Moonshot Kimi K2.5 through Fireworks and only through Fireworks. Now, OpenHands uses the Light LLM SDK, so you can specify through an environment variable the extra body payload that will get sent via Light LLM SDK. So you can set your provider configuration, like the order, the fallbacks, and with that in place, you can specify your API key to be your OpenRouter API key. You can set your model to be OpenRouter/ as a prefix, and then your OpenRouter model identifier. With those three things in place, then you can run OpenHands CLI with override with ems in order to have these set your configuration, and you should be good to go. Now, Cloud Code does not have the ability to specify your OpenRouter providers, so this is why I created this shim, which is a local proxy that injects that configuration into your requests. With this, then all you have to do is run the proxy. You can specify command line arguments or set an environment variable to use a specific provider. And then in Claude Code, before running it, you just have to set the mvarf Anthropic base URL to be your local proxy and your Anthropic model to be, in this case, Moonshot Kimi K2.5. Now we can run Claude and we'll see that we have this model selected here. Now Droid in theory has the ability to use this out of the box. In their custom model configuration, there is an extra args parameter that you can use to specify extra payload body like openrouter-provider object with your configuration. However, when I tried this out, all tool calls failed. It did not work. So using this shim is another workaround, at least until they address that. You can run the shim and then you can set a custom model with your local proxy as the base URL, and you should be able to use it without a problem. I'm going to try running my shim pointing to Fireworks as the inference provider. We'll see the messages come through, starting with Claude Code. You can see we're using the Anthropic Messages API, and we are getting some successful API requests there. Getting pretty good throughput as well, it seems. Okay, we can see we have pretty good results there, so this works great with Claude Code as a drop-in replacement for Sonnet, especially if you configure Fireworks as your provider. Now let's try it with Droid. With Droid, what you have to do is set up a custom provider, as I mentioned, and point it to your locally running shim. Here we see tool use coming through. In contrast to Claude Code, instead of using the Anthropic Messages API, we're using the OpenAI compatible Chat Completions API, and we see the requests coming through here. Here we are. Here's our summary analysis of the shim's codebase using Factory Droid. Finally, a word of caution regarding rate limits. This is a relatively new model. It came out 2 days ago. Some people are talking about it, not that many, but apparently a lot of people are using it, especially with kilocode. There's 94 billion tokens of usage, 1.2 billion tokens via Claude Code, which is interesting. The tricky thing is that requests coming from OpenRouter to Fireworks are getting severely rate limited. They're doing their best to increase capacity, but one of the things I saw in the OpenRouter error message about the upstream rate limits is that setting API key with a provider could help to increase capacity for your own consumption. This is something you can do through OpenRouter with a BYOK. So I signed up for Fireworks and got a key there. You don't need to pay anything to get $6 of credit, of which I've spent $1.51, and I've used about 5 million tokens. So I'm averaging 30 cents per million token. That is half of the stated input price. I think that is because we are making heavy use of cache reads, especially given the output price. For a blended price of 30 cents per million token, having a model that is on par with Sonnet and Opus, even beating them on certain benchmarks, through my vibe tests of building out the very tool that I showed, it seems like a very excellent solution to many high token usage use cases.